Welcome to the underground. Apparently, through an odyssey of darkness, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. So they say. But sometimes there isn't. Welcome to the latest episode of The Hunted, episode 2. Going underground in the undergrowth. So, things have gone tits up completely out there in society, and you need to escape quickly. So you're going to have to go into woodland, where very few people will follow you, particularly at night time. So you need to find the ideal space to pitch a tent or to build an emergency shelter using a tarp, and you need to do your best to camouflage it. So if you look behind me, this is the place that I've selected. What can you see? Absolutely nothing other than the undergrowth. But behind there is my shelter, a small tent, ideal for a night. Let me show you how it's done. So why select a setting of this nature in this location? Well, perhaps you can hear the reason why. Deep undergrowth, blackberry thicket, absolute nightmare. Nobody can get through this quietly without making an almighty racket. It just isn't possible. Ahead is the little campsite that I've chosen for the night. Can you see it? You have to really look closely. You have to strain the naked eye to see it. But to get to it, 360 degrees, you've got to wade through deep blackberry thicket, holly and bracken. It makes an almighty racket. You're asleep in that tent, no problem. You'll be woken to it at least 50, 60, 100 yards before anyone gets anywhere near you. And you can make ready your escape route. And the escape route has to be planned in advance, obviously. So let's look at it from a different angle. Everywhere is deep undergrowth. Lush green foliage. This time of year, it is perfect. Absolutely perfect. And as I said, no one is getting through this small jungle, this macro jungle, without making an almighty racket to get to you. That's your early warning system, and it's also the deterrent. People will trip, fall, get snarled in this undergrowth very easily. It's all about giving you the advantage to move quickly, to abandon the camp. Make sure your backpack is packed and ready to go. You may have to abandon the tent at a moment's notice. And you'll see ahead, I've taken steps to camouflage it. It's not until you get up close and personal that you can actually see the canopy of the tent covered in camouflage netting. And to the right, paracord, which acts as tripwire barrier. Non-lethal tripwire barrier, that is. And over there, directly ahead, is the escape route. Straight through that very same undergrowth, across the fields, leads in any direction into even more deep woodland. Across that farmer's field, whichever direction you want to take, that is the escape route. Remember a vitally important lesson when you're in the tent or emergency shelter at night time, when you're on the run, that is. You have to look at it like combat conditions, live combat conditions in the army. You must maintain light security and keep noise to an absolute minimum. Light security means don't sit there playing on your phone, smoking cigarettes, etc., making fires of any description. It simply attracts attention. It attracts the enemy. And that's the last thing you want to do, attract the enemy. The whole point of being underground in the undergrowth is to hide from the enemy. It's a small tent. There will be condensation. It's covered in camouflage netting. It's daylight. For the moment, but in a few hours it'll be dark. So let's just say, hypothetically, you've just found this place. You've got to be able to set this up in 30-45 minutes, a whole lot basically, certainly no more than an hour. You've always got to be thinking against the time factor of darkness falling, particularly if it's winter. So here you are, you're in the tent, darkness is falling. It has to be light security at all times. Remember that. This is a live operation. You are being hunted. You are on the run. You must maintain light security. Don't ever forget it. If you need to cough, like I said, put your hand over your mouth. No fires, nothing, no lights. But make sure you have a high-powered torch with you. I have a 2000 lumens torch in my bag. The reason why? Not because I intend to use it, but in case of an emergency. If somebody stumbles upon you, if there's any form of attack and you need to stop them, you need to stun them with that torch. Okay? That is the only time you use the torch. You use it to stun them, and then it's evasion techniques. In other words, run. So this is the scene outside the tent or emergency shelter. You're in your little hideout. So let's take a look around at what you can see, or what the enemy may or may not be able to see. This is all the enemy can see from this position. All around the shelter, or the hideout, is dense undergrowth, holly, blackberry, thorns, bracken. Incredibly difficult to get through, unless you've got a machete, and most people won't have one. Ahead is just a little bit of evergreen foliage that I've put up to further disguise the hideout. It can be essential. And over there, on the distant horizon, and I'm sure you can see it, is another heavy woodland and the northwest tip of a forest across a farmer's field. If you're being pursued, best not to run directly across the field, that is. Stick to the outline. Go around the edges or run in a zigzag pattern. If you're going across an open field, remember, do it in exactly the same way as you would an infantry assault. Zigzag. Zigzag attack. Throw the enemy. Remember, this is a war. It's a psychological war, but it also becomes a physical war when the enemy catches up with you. And the whole purpose of going on the run in the first place into the underground was to evade capture, to avoid being imprisoned. You don't want to be imprisoned. You don't agree with being imprisoned. That is your right. You can do something about it, or you can do nothing about it and just succumb. But this is what I did frequently between 2017 and late 2019. I went into the underground, and I don't regret a thing. And these are the techniques that I used. And they never caught me once in this way. It was not until I became seriously ill that they finally caught up with me. But when I was well, I was always 3 steps ahead of them. The hunters aren't really that good. They think they are, but allow them to think whatever they want. You do the thinking for yourself. And you thought about this in detail, didn't you? And you took active steps to protect yourself, to disguise your location, because you're a ghost. Some important issues to remember. Make sure you don't use any bright colours. Don't wear bright colours of any description. It's self-explanatory, isn't it? You need to be the grey man or the dark man, the plain man, unrecognisable, or glow in the dark. Only fools glow in the dark in this situation, believe me. That's the last thing you want. Your tent, your tarp, everything has to blend into the woodland setting. Nothing bright, nothing glaring or glowing. You know, you've got to approach it at all times like a military operation. Okay? Think about what you're doing before you do it. That way, poor performance is usually avoided. But in a situation like this, just about anything can happen. I've been in situations many times when all manner of weird and wonderful things have happened without warning. It's how you react to them that determines the measure of the type of person that you are. So it'll be dark soon. If you're afraid of the dark, you're afraid of being alone in the dark, in the forest, and believe me, you need to stay away from the underground, because there are strange things in the forest at night time. And to be perfectly honest with you, they're not always human or animal form. I have seen some very, very inexplicable, paranormal things in the forest at night time, which left me absolutely gobsmacked. We'll talk about those later, towards the end of the episode. Welcome to the underground. It can be great fun. Remember, choppers coming overhead. You need to have overhead canopy cover, and this is it. So we're back in the forest again. You're being hunted. In this next scene, I'll show you how to erect a tarp quickly with some camouflage netting and some paracord. It has to be essential that you're well hidden from sight, both from the air. Okay, there might be choppers scanning for you. You never know. Always expect the unexpected. Think like they think. And also visible from ground level. In other words, anyone wandering through the forest at night time. So let's take a look at this tarp, shall we? This is quick, easy, 30 minutes to construct. So down there in the ravine is the tarp, and you can see all around there's perfect cover. It's at least 30 feet from ground level where I'm stood right now. Nobody's going to be looking for it. Nobody's going to expect it. This is right in the middle of a large forest. Very few people come here. And if they do, they're on a track about a quarter of a mile away. And that is an offbeat track. Look at the scenery around you. You've studied it. You've found the right location. This is the right location. It also provides cover from the air. Drones, helicopters, you name it. And if they're looking for a heat signature, then of course you maintain light security at all times, as explained in the previous scene. And of course there is the heat from your body. And of course you just put a survival blanket over you inside the tarp shelter, and that basically will retain most of the heat and stop it from reflecting outwards. You wouldn't even be able to tell the difference between a tiny heat signature coming from you and an animal in the forest. And that's the beauty of it, because you are the animal in the forest. You're the hunted animal in the forest, and you want to stay at liberty, and this is the way you do it. Behind me, in the background, is my very own little wigwam. The forest tarp, the hunted shelter. It'll keep the rain elements off you, most of the wind, and even snow. It's not perfect. Well, that's the whole point with an emergency shelter. It's to be erected in the event of an emergency, and you're being hunted, and you've had to go off the radar quickly. And this is your emergency. So take it seriously. If you don't, you will pay the price, both in terms of potential hypothermia and also being captured. And that's the last thing that you want, isn't it? Which is worse, hypothermia or being captured? And here we can see the tarp on a slight hillock that provides it with even more cover and shelter from this direction. It doesn't stand out, there are no bright colours. It's a strong green tarp. It'll stand up to just about any type of rainfall. Hopefully You've got to hope it does. Always expect a rainstorm or a storm of some description, high winds, to wreck the shelter and for you to have to rebuild it in the dark in driving rain and wind. I've done it. It's unpleasant. That's just the way it is. You made this decision, didn't you, to become hunted, to go on the run. You have to accept the consequences of your actions. No point whining and whinging about it. That won't change a thing. So what's it like being in a tarp at night time in a forest? On a location like this, and I've done locations like this, one in particular in the High Weald Forest in Kent, it's black. Very, very black and dark. It deters the vast majority of people. Probably the most likelihood of any human activity here at night time would be poachers. But of course, providing you keep quiet and you maintain light security, there's not really an awful lot to worry about. Other than the dark and the imagination that runs riot, and you have to learn to control that as well. You can't sit there fretting about what you imagine is out there. Every single twig or branch that creaks and snaps, that will drive you crazy. You've got to learn to master it, mind over matter at all times. I've done this in live field conditions, hunted, successfully, never caught in this context. And here we have the tarp from another angle, next to this leaning hazel tree, which is very spindly and noisy. As you can hear, you will hear this type of thing frequently at night time. Breaking twigs, branches. Oh yeah, really gets to you to begin with. Makes you razor sharp and alert. And the good thing about this location, as I said in the previous scene, is the fact that not only is it so remote, because of the dense undergrowth to both sides of it, in fact 360 degrees all the way around it, there's deep blackberry thicket and bracken, thorns of every description. You will hear anyone coming. And the longer you're on the run, the sharper your senses become. You become razor sharp. In actual fact, you become like a meerkat. That is no exaggeration, truly. You become almost meerkat-like. I certainly did. After a year and a half, I could sense danger coming even before it manifested. The sixth sense becomes so elevated, so exaggerated, because in essence you've become animalistic. You've returned to the animal world, the forest, the jungle as it were, that we all originally descended from. And it can be great fun. I really enjoyed it. You know, thrilling, exciting, you know, but I always expect the unexpected. Danger is lurking at just about every corner. And sometimes that danger can be falling branches, falling trees in high winds. You might want to think again if there's very high winds. Not safe to camp in a place like this in a really heavy storm, because of the danger of branches coming down and just killing you, obviously, crushing you. And then you'll be hunted no more. You'll be buried in the forest until some dog walker some years from now with his dog finds you inadvertently. That's not the objective of being hunted. The objective of being hunted is to stay at liberty. The key things to remember in a situation like this: make sure you have dry cover overhead, which is what we've got. Ground to body insulation, particularly in cold weather. That's where hypothermia comes from. You know, you need a roll mat for certain, and you need a decent sleeping bag, which means you've got some kit to carry. You know, that's just the way it is. This is not easy. This is a tough business. This is survival, at the raw end, the cutting edge, the business end of being on the run. This is about as grim as it gets. You don't have to do it forever unless you really want to, but sometimes you do need to go off the radar and do just this. Maintain light security. As I said in the previous scene, make sure you have a good, powerful torch. I have a 2000 lumens one, can turn night into day at the flick of a switch. That will stop and deter anyone, particularly in a setting like this, because that explosion of light will stun them. It will literally make them jump out of their skin, and then you can make your escape. Don't worry, think. Always think ahead. Plan every detail, but always expect that your plans may go awry at a moment's notice because of any number of factors, variables. It's just the way it is. And you need to be adaptable, and you need to do it quickly. Treat it like a military operation, as I said in the previous scene. Make sure you're ready to move at a moment's notice. And as dawn breaks, you can finally relax the light security and brew up a tea or a coffee on a stove, whatever you've got. But at night time, when it's dark, make sure you maintain light security. That is vitally important. Probably not as important in a ravine of this nature, but still, don't get carried away. Don't start being flamboyant. Lights attract attention, remember? And attention is the last thing you want in a situation like this. You can see in the background, to my right flank, it's always useful to have a folding saw. For obvious reasons, you know, you're going to have to cut wood at some point. It's unavoidable. That folding saw, it's invaluable in a situation like this. Really, it is. You know, it has a whole number of uses, as I'm sure you can understand. The reason why I always take one into the forest with me. It's perfect for cutting material of any description, particularly wood. In the next scene of this documentary, we'll do the terrors of the night, so to speak. Things that happen in the night which are very unpleasant, and how you should react to them, basically. I'll replay a couple of experiences that I had in the dark. Yes, very, very spooky, very scary. That's the real measure of a man, really. Absolutely no doubt about it. Particularly when you encounter the Wig-Wag signal, and what an experience that was. And I'm sure you'll enjoy it. It was thrilling, very dangerous, but thrilling. And it was there for a reason. The Wig-Wag is an old NATO symbol, which basically says, warning, danger of death ahead. There's always a danger of death ahead, isn't there? In every single aspect of life. And there's definitely a danger of death in the underground. That much I can assure you. So stick with me. Come. Let's go into the darkness together. Let's confront the terrors of the night. This is another type of improvised shelter that you can make in the woodlands, just using tarp. Just be creative. You just need to keep the rain and snow away from you. This is a great little shelter. Very easily constructed. Takes about 40-50 minutes. It's ideal. Always think ahead. And, you know, because of light security, you can't make fires, sadly. But as soon as dawn breaks, you most definitely can brew up tea and coffee. This is the ideal place to do it. Spooky nights on the road, or more to the point, off the road, avoiding detection when you're being hunted. Best to stay off the main roads for obvious reasons. While it's dangerous, these footpaths offer far more protection, but sometimes they don't. They lead you straight into an ambush. What the fuck is that? Is that a car? Oh, it's too small, too close together for a car. Looks like I know that signal from somewhere. I recognise it. I recognise that signal. Looks like an old military signal. What the fuck is it? Where have I seen that before? No, that signal. Oh, fucking hell, it's a warning signal. Get the fuck out of here. Shit. Don't mess around when you see signals like that, just go. So the objective of nighttime operations, and you must approach this like a military operation in the dark at all times, because you're on the run, you're being hunted, remember? It's not a game. You need to stay at liberty through being at large, or as small as possible, more to the point. In the scene that we just demonstrated, which is the Wig-Wag signal, if you ever see anything of that nature on the footpath ahead, do not ignore it. You are walking straight into an ambush. What it means, and it was adapted from the old US railway system, it means warning, danger of death ahead. And that's what happened here on this very same slip canal in winter 2013, as I was walking home avoiding the hunters, and walked straight into an ambush before it actually sprung upon me. I was gone in a flash. I had to do a few miles detour basically, and then return home in a taxi. But the terrors of the night, it's unavoidable in the underground. Welcome to the darkness.